if I love goodness, right? I'm almost like a Neoplatonist now. Like if I love the good itself, then I am aiming towards the highest, and I'm kind of moving up this hierarchy of love, you could say. And so that's not easy. So it means that, what let's say the saints would say, and what some of the philosophers would say is that or even like, I don't know, a Zen Buddhist would say, is that you can arrive at those things by a type of intuition, insight, right? You can arrive at insight, and that insight is not contained in the mechanisms that I'm trying to bring about. It's contained in a type of grasping that happens, right? When you see that things come together, and all of a sudden you see a kind of shining light of unity, and you grasp it. That's insight.
Yeah.
But insight cannot be, can very difficultly be explained by
or
the
codified
type of discourse that rationalists want to use.
Okay. I just spoke
So we have a problem, which is that on the one hand, this is what all the traditional things are talking about, right? This is what so many of the religious, let's say the theologians, the mystics are talking about, which is the capacity for insight. But you can't totally describe it. You have to play around it. You have to skirt around it. You have to point at it. And then when you have that, so you could say the same, like you could, let's use an example that's very simple. There's no woo-woo here. It's like, I can tell you what it's like to be in love. I can say it. I can tell you a million ways and what it's like to be in love. But unless that happens to you, unless you grasp that, unless you reach that insight, you will never fully understand what it is. You have to enter into it with experience. Now, the ways we talk about it can help guide you in that insight, can help stabilize that insight, can help you, but it's not enough. You have to kind of enter into that experience. And this is the same for everything that you describe. This is the same for anything that has identity. I can describe a hammer all day long, but grabbing the hammer in your hand and using it, that's the insight of the hammer. And it cannot be reduced to its quantifiable things. It can't be reduced to its description, can't be reduced even to its function. There's something about it which is more, and that is the very mysticism that someone like Lindsay wants to decry. But you can't avoid that, because mysticism happens not just in some saint's cave where they're praying and they're having it happens every time you encounter unity in the world. Every time you transcend the multiplicity of quantifiable things into the unity that binds them together, you're having a little mystical experience.
Yes.
That's as true for a pencil as it's true for falling in love or going to church. All these, or putting your hand on your breast and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Like these things are all mystical in their nature.
Yeah. But the issue then is that when we observe human beings unifying in their unification in a bigger group, like once they start to formulate or to congregate through religions, through creeds, through political parties, nations, families, businesses,
friendships.
Careers,
how about that?
Friendships. Friendships is still like families and friendships is still more organic. But once we get into a higher level, like something beyond a township, there's the capacity for authoritarianism, totalitarianism.
So there's the same in
unification, a unification.
It's actually the same in a person. A person can have an authoritarian. A person can try to apply authoritarian principles to the multiple aspects that constitute it. Right.
Could you give
see
an
people
example?
do that all the time, right?
Like
They deny something about themselves, right? They just try to push it into as if it doesn't exist, and they try to compress, right, this idea of repressing certain things in you. That's an authoritarian approach to a single being.
Yeah.
And so the authoritarian approach can happen at every level of unity, from the person to the family to the city to the state to the basketball team, to any type of unity is in danger of having that characteristic. There's no way around it.
And so when
Right.
approaching any given group of people, how does one analyze that to see if it's healthy or unhealthy or good or bad or evil or whatever? Like what tool set, how do you describe that which allows you to assess whether this unity is proper or improper?
Well, the unity itself, I mean, how can I say this? Unities are always around a purpose, right? So first of all, the purpose can be bad, right? You can have a street gang whose the fact of their unity is to rob people and kill people. And so the purpose of the unity, that's what unity is always directed towards purpose. And so you can first of all identify the reason for the unity, and that can be a problem. And then you can also look at the mechanisms by which the unity is manifesting itself, which is that the traditional vision, I think, of unity is something like a dance between unity and multiplicity, right? It's this kind of breathing in and breathing out. Was it one of my favorite quotes from Rumi, who talks about, he says, if you keep your hand always open, or if you keep your hand always closed, you will be paralyzed. But actual experience is in the very subtle moving open and closed of the hand. That's how reality works, is this subtle dance between unity and multiplicity. And that's how you can recognize if something is balanced or not. So it's the same in a family. You can see that, right? It's like, if there's too much multiplicity, then it's chaos in the house, and then everybody's doing their own thing, and things are messy, and nobody can, and everybody's screaming at each other. And if there's too much unity, right, then everybody is afraid, and everybody is just in line and just doing the things they need to do, and there's no variability, there's no joy, there's no kind of and so you have to always, no matter what unity you participate in, you always have to find a balance between the two. And that's true of yourself, by the way, as well. If you work 24 hours a day, you will collapse. If you play 24 hours a day, you will collapse. And if you sleep 24 hours a day, you will collapse. Like, there is a balance of attention and distraction. There's a balance of reason and emotion. All of these things are part of how a human being functions. And if you deny one aspect of it, then it builds up and it explodes. And by the way, this is my critique of the kind of rationalist enlightenment mode, is that it ignores aspects of reality. It just says, don't do that. Don't be unreasonable. Don't follow your emotions. Just be reasonable and logical and scientific, and you'll be fine, right? And that's the equivalent of saying, you could work 24 hours a day if you just don't sleep, Benjamin. Just don't sleep. And if you sleep, I'll tell you, oh, I told you not to sleep. Why are you sleeping? If you become distracted, I'll say, well, why are you being distracted, Benjamin? I told you, just pay attention. It seems like you're not following what I'm saying. If you just did what I said, then the world would be perfect and everything would flow would flow wonderfully. And so this is the problem with the Steven Pinker and kind of, Hicks and all of these kind of Enlightenment types, is that they decry an aspect of humanity which is part of humanity and is not only part, but is inevitable to humanity. And then they're surprised when they watch it blow up. They're surprised when they see it explode in front of them. And they're like, well, no, we said just be reasonable and, just follow these things. And if you do, then you'll be fine. And this is where we are now, by the way. This is the moment where we've reached, which is that the things that the Enlightenment ignored, which is, for example, the means by which we attain unity, that's now exploding at everybody's face. They said, just be reasonable, be rational. If we're just rational and scientific, and we develop scientific things and more machines and more technology and more science, then we'll have food and wealth and money, and then we'll be happy, right? But sadly, that's not what's happening. That's obviously not what's happening. And now that narrative is exploding.